So let's have a look at NSGs in the Azure portal. So usually you can create an NSG when creating your virtual machine. However, let's say for example you have not created an NSG with your virtual machine and you have just a plain virtual machine that is open to the internet. So if we look under one of my virtual machines, so it is a demo Linux virtual machine, and we can see that I've got a public IP address to it, and it is a Linux operating system running on it. And if we go to the networking tab, and if we have a look here, we can see that there are no NSGs associated to this virtual machine. So let's go ahead and create a network security group. So let's go ahead, create a new resource. And let's go ahead for network security group. And we're going to use the ARM deployment. So let's go ahead and create. Okay, so let's name this NSG something arbitrary like test NSG. We are going to deploy to our default subscription under my demo resource group, and we're going to leave the location as West Europe. So let's just give this a few seconds to create. Okay, so our NSG has been created successfully. So if we go to all resources, we scroll down, here we can see our test NSG, and here we can see we have quite a few options. So as we've discussed, you can associate a virtual machine either via a network interface card or via a subnet to a network security group. So for this example, we're going to go ahead under the settings and we're going to go to network interfaces, and we're going to go and associate, and we're going to choose our NIC of our demo Linux virtual machine. Let's go back to overview, and you can see here we have the basic inbound security rules and the default outbound security rules. So if we come back to network interfaces, we can see the public IP address of the NIC as well as the private IP address. So let's go ahead to the inbound security rules. So as we can see, the only ports allowed are the default ports. So this means that we cannot reach this virtual machine via SSH anymore. So let's pull up our SSH screen and give it a go. So let's go back to our virtual machine. Let's copy this public IP address. Let's pull up PuTTY over here. And we're going to use SSH on the default port. It is trying, however, it's just going to get a failed state because it's not able to initiate an SSH terminal to that virtual machine because it is not allowed via the inbound rules for the NSG. So now that we're on the demo virtual machine, if we click on networking, we can see that we are associated to the test NSG network security group. So let's just click on the NSG under inbound security rules, and we're going to add a rule to access this virtual machine specifically from a specific IP address and deny all other public IP addresses. And here we can see several settings we will need to configure in order to create this new rule. So the source is basically from where you are initiating your connection from. So in this case, we will be choosing an IP address. However, you can still use a service tag or an application security group. A service tag basically means that you can block or allow specific IP addresses. For example, an internet tag will have all of the IP addresses associated to the internet. So you can, for example, block outbound internet access for a virtual machine quite easy with a service tag instead of manually just blocking everything. Then we have application security group, which is where you can group virtual machines into a application group, and then you can apply NSG rules based on a subset of virtual machines. So you do not have to edit a network security group rule each time for each and every virtual machine. You can just assign those virtual machines to an application security group, and then you can, with a single rule, manage specific ports to and from those servers which are part of the application security group. However, for this instance, we're going to choose an IP address, so because I only want to allow access from my own network into Azure, so we're going to choose IP address. So we are entering my public IP address here, and this needs to be in the formation of a classless inter-domain routing range or a CIDR range. So which basically means it does not have to be a specific IP address. You can even use, for example, a /24 if your company owns a larger pool of public IP addresses. The source port ranges are the ports that will be used, initiating this connection. The destination will not be any. So once again, we have a few options here. So we can choose IP address, and we can allow this public IP address to connect, to a specific IP address within Azure, or we can use the destination IP address as a virtual network in general. So if we create this rule, all the virtual machines hosted in this virtual network, which are Linux virtual machines, will then be able to, I will be able to SSH from my own network. And the same goes for application security groups. However, for this instance, let's just choose an IP address, and let's enter our IP address for our Linux virtual machine, and this will be the local IP address, and it will be 10.0.1.4. And the destination port ranges are quite important because this is the known port ranges that you should use. And if you want to use SSH, it will be port 22, and the protocol will be TCP. While it's best security practice to use either TCP or UDP ports and not leave it on any unless it's for a specific cause. Here we have action, so we can either allow or deny the connection that we've just created, or this rule, and it's going to be an allow action. And here we have a priority. So let's say, for example, we have 100 rules, and the rule with the lowest priority will always take preference. So the priority starts at 100, and you can modify it and to move it upwards, whatever you see fit. So let's leave it at 100 for now. We're going to create a rule name, and we're going to say SSH Linux VM, and under the description we're just going to leave it the same. Let's go ahead and add this rule for us. As you can see, our rule has completed successfully, and here we can see, so which means this rule is already in effect, and we should be able to SSH to that virtual machine. So let's give it a go. So let's go ahead and pull up our PuTTY terminal again. Let's put in the public IP address, and which should happen now is we should be able to SSH to this virtual machine. And there you can see we have our login screen, and just for completion purposes, let's go ahead and enter our password. And as you can see, we are in this virtual machine. So no one else on the internet is able to connect to this virtual machine via SSH. It is only this public IP address, and you can change the public IP address as you see fit. So this is the manual way of configuring NSG rules. However, if you use privileged identity management, PIM will automatically create and delete these rules for you based on your public IP address and for the duration. So let's have a look at the subnet options you have for NSGs. So here again, you can associate a specific subnet. So you'll have to choose the virtual network and then the subnet based on that virtual network. So let's go ahead and use demo VNet. And let's just use that subnet, which is called default in this case. And you will see there we have our whole subnet on our VNet, which is associated to the NSG. So whenever we deploy a new virtual machine, which is on the subnet, it will automatically form part of our NSG because the subnet is associated to this NSG. It is also Microsoft's best practice to associate subnets instead of network interface cards because it's easy to forget a specific virtual machine's NIC to be added to the NSG. However, if you configure the NSG to associate a specific subnet, it doesn't matter what virtual machine you add to that virtual network, it will automatically form part of that virtual network's subnet, and you will be secure.